The first book that we heard from today was from the Book of Wisdom. It was written in Greek by a faithful Jew. And it was written at a time when Hellenism was flourishing. That great Greek revival that spread across the ancient world, that had marvelous art, architecture, science, sports, mathematics, brought to very, very high levels. One Greek mathematician of the period, he calculated not only the shape and size of the earth accurately, but he also calculated the size and shape of the moon and how far the moon was from the earth within a couple miles accuracy, just by careful observation and the applying of the math that they were able to utilize. Science was flourishing. Under Aristotle, he said, how do we study the physical world around us? We do it by carefully observing each individual item and try to understand what caused it immediately. If you light a candle, you could say, well, that match lit the candle. That's the immediate cause of the candle being lit. He said, if you want to understand what something is, look at a whole series of individual something. So you look at 1,000 trees and say, what do all those 1,000 trees have in common? And then you're able to say, now I know what a tree is. It has bark, it has leaves, it grows, etc. And so you can abstract and get a universal idea of what the word tree means. So that's basically the scientific method to this very day. But then Aristotle said we have to go beyond physics to the world of metaphysics. What's the ultimate cause of everything, not the immediate? And this, he used abstract reason. He said everything is in motion, and everything that's in motion we see has been put in motion by something else that's already in motion. Ultimately, though, you've got to come to the ultimate cause of something that is not moving, that has set everything else in motion. Then he said, if we look around us in the world today, we'll see that everything is working in harmony. And there seems to be an intelligent design or pattern behind it all, a purpose for which everything is moving. And there has to be an ultimate designer. He would also say, if you notice, each individual item isn't necessary for the existence of the whole. You know, each one of us could disappear and the whole remains. Each individual stone could disappear, but a rocky planet could remain. So those are all contingent things. But ultimately, there has to be something that is not contingent, that's absolutely necessary, that's holding everything else in existence. So this is abstract reasoning beyond physics. Now, within Catholicism, we believe in philosophy and theology, faith and reason working together. And the great theologian Thomas Aquinas embraced Aristotle's method and incorporated it into theology. So we could dialogue and speak with people who have no faith, explaining why we do have faith and why it's not irrational. Now you'll notice, however, that the Catholic philosophers, theologians, and scientists are not really a part of what's called the intelligent design movement that is popular today in many evangelical churches. And why is that? Because they would like to incorporate that into the normal science classes. But like Aristotle, we say this is something beyond science. It's metaphysics, goes beyond physics. It should be in philosophy, not in science. Philosophy is the study of the ultimate cause of everything, while science is the study of the immediate cause of everything. Secondly, in the intelligent design movement, they say everything had to be created just as it is now because of irreducible complexity. Any insect, any eye, any part of the human body is too complex to have evolved from something else. Well, the Catholic position has never been that. The intelligent designer could have very well and probably did design a self-sustaining reality. If you look at a seed, it doesn't have branches, it doesn't have flowers, it's just a sort of a lifeless seed, but it evolves in the course of its life into a plant. So we distance ourselves from the intelligent design movement, but we, as we look in faith out on the wonderful world around us, we could see the intelligence of God. One time Einstein was asked, well, what are you doing with your life's work? And he said, I'm trying to figure out the mind of God and that great ultimate purpose of how everything is working together. Now, the author of wisdom, he looked out at the universe and said, how glorious it is. But the whole universe put together, which we now know is made up of between 100 and 300 billion galaxies at least, is simply like a drop of dew on the morning grass, or maybe a little grain of sand when we compare it to God, the one who orders all things. Now, he was obviously attuned with everything going on in the Hellenistic world around him, but he was inspired to go beyond that. Because the Hellenistic world, for all of its strength, sort of looked at the material world with a little bit of disdain. We got to get away from it because it's changing, it's decaying, it's not permanent. But the author of Hebrews says, every single thing in the created world is wonderful because God creates nothing loathsome. Everything is good. If it wasn't good, God would not have created it. And then going along with necessary being in the non-contingent factor, he says, God sustains everything in existence. And even the sinners, because he's so patient with sinners. He wants to teach them little by little about what's evil and what's good, so that they can find the freedom and the love and the fulfillment that God had destined them to. So a marvelous reading we had today in our liturgy. But now St. Paul, in today's second reading, says to the Thessalonians, a lot of you are looking for the end of the world. You may have had a spiritual experience proclaiming the near end, or maybe you received a letter that was supposed to be from us saying the end is near and you're panicking. So don't panic. The Lord in his time is in charge of this world and the next as well. And we've seen in every century very sincere, intense people saying, the Lord's coming back, the Lord's coming back. And we believe the Lord will come back to transform this world in ways that we can't even begin to understand. For those saints that have gone before us and standing before the throne of God, they're longing for the new heavens and a new earth, when they could be material again in a new way, in a universe where the lamb and the lion will lay down with one another, where the child could play with the snake, when there'll be a new type of creation beyond anything we could imagine. And they are waiting for that world to come to fulfillment. Outside of time and space, in eternity. A concept that we won't understand till we step into eternity. Now, Jesus in today's gospel, he's passing through a big city that's primarily pagan, but with a large Jewish population. And there's crowds following him because they heard of this miraculous traveling rabbi. And Zacchaeus had heard rumors that he actually was not condemning tax collectors. Had a close companion that was a tax collector. Said, I've got to see this. And the crowd's too big, he's too short, a little pipsqueak of a guy. So he scurries on his short legs ahead of the crowd, and he climbs up a tree just to get a glimpse of Jesus. And Jesus calls him by name. Come down, Zacchaeus, I'm going to your house today. Jesus calls every one of us today. And Jesus wants to come to every one of our homes today. We have to let that sink in. Zacchaeus comes down and he's sort of like in a state of shock. And everybody else is in a state of shock too. This is a hard man, a tax collector for the Romans, someone who extorts and defrauds people of their wealth, someone who's caused all types of suffering in the community. So they're saying, he's going to his house? But Zacchaeus, his hardened heart had already been shattered. He said, today I'm going to pay back everybody I've defrauded, and there's a lot of them, fourfold. More than that, I'm going to give half of my legitimate wealth to the poor, because now I've been enriched in a way that I've always been looking for in my life, but never found it till Jesus called me by name. And that's the wealth that we're looking for in this world. That's the riches we need to sustain us on our great journey of intellect and our journey of faith.